How many of us have taken a genetic test to personalize our diet? And how many received a genetic report saying they shouldn't try a low-carb or keto diet because their genes would make them get bad lipids, type 2 diabetes, or gain weight on these diets? If this is you, you are in good company. Everybody carries at least some genes that presumably predispose them to fail on a low-carb or keto diet. But if this is true, why is it that most people seem to improve their metabolic health on these diets? Isn't that confusing? Well, if you are confused, then this presentation is for you. By the end of this presentation, you will be able to understand how your genes can affect the way you respond to a keto diet, identify the good, the bad, and the ugly in your genetic report for keto, and evaluate whether or not genetic testing can help you find out whether keto is right for you. The ketogenic diet, or keto for short, is a low-carb, high-fat, adequate protein diet that more and more people are successfully using to lose weight and improve their metabolic and cognitive health. But some people do better than others on keto. For example, some people may have an easier time losing weight on keto than others. This variability of response can result from many factors, including physiological factors, sex, age, body weight, lifestyle factors, diet, exercise, stress, and the interaction of these factors with a person's genetic predispositions. Our genes are mighty molecules. They can have powerful effects on the way we look, feel, and respond to a drug or diet. But they usually work in big networks of thousands and millions of tiny genetic variations that interact with each other and with our environment. It's like an orchestra that plays in sync with lifestyle factors to modulate the symphony of our biology. When it comes to genes and diet, this symphony is called nutrigenomics, which is the science of how DNA and diet dance with each other to shape our health from the inside out and outside in. There are two main steps in this dance. The first step is called nutrigenetics, which is the way our genes can affect how we respond to the food we eat from the inside out. The second step is called epigenetics, which is the way the food we eat can affect how we respond, how our genes work. So it's from the outside in. Nutrigenetics and epigenetics work hand in hand in nutrigenomics and are the cornerstone sciences of my research at Stanford University. But today, I will focus on nutrigenetics and present to you a snapshot of the state of the art in the nutrigenetics of keto response, drawing examples from a recent review that I published with Angela Poff, Dominic D'Agostino, and Jeff Folek, And this review is available as an open access article on BMJ, Nutrition, Prevention, and Health. Before we dive deeper into the topic, let's have a quick genetic refresher. The DNA inside of our cells is made of 4 letters called nucleotides. A for adenine, C for cytosine, G for guanine, and T for thymine. The sequence of these letters provides the information to determine the sequence of amino acids in the proteins that make up our cells. Variations in the DNA sequence are called genetic variants and can affect the structure and function of these proteins. Each of us carries about 5 million of these variants, which together contribute to making each of us genetically unique. The genetic variants that can affect the way people respond to a keto diet can be divided into 2 categories: symphony variants and solo variants. Symphony variants work in big networks with each other and with our environment, and therefore they have subtle effects on our physiology and the way we respond to a keto diet. Solo variants, on the other hand, can alone, independently of other genetic and lifestyle factors, dramatically change the melody of our physiology and response to keto. Therefore, they represent an absolute indication or contraindication to keto and can be described as pro-keto or anti-keto variants. Now, I bet you all want to know whether you carry a pro-keto or anti-keto variant, don't you? The good news is most likely you don't carry an anti-keto one. Pro-keto and anti-keto variants are extremely rare and can lead to inborn errors of metabolism that manifest early in life and can be lethal. Many anti-keto variants impair our body's ability to use fat or ketones as fuel. And therefore, they represent a contraindication to keto, fasting, or any condition that lowers blood sugar and therefore increases our body's demand for ketones. Many pro-keto variants, on the other hand, can impair our body's ability to use glucose as fuel. And therefore, they represent an indication for keto, because a keto diet through ketones can provide an alternative fuel to glucose for the body and the brain. So for example, we have seen that the keto diet is the first line of therapy for children who carry a mutation in the GLUT1 gene, a mutation that impairs their ability to transport glucose into the brain. Now, let's get to the interesting part, the symphony variants for keto nutrigenetics. These are the variants that you and I carry because they are very common. And these are those you will find on your genetic report for keto. To help you evaluate which, if any of these variants, can help you figure out if keto is right for you, we have grouped these variants into 3 categories based on their scientific validity and clinical utility: the good, the bad, and the ugly. Let's start with the good first. Good genetic variants for keto nutrigenetics are variants that have been identified in studies with people following a keto diet. Only a few variants fall into this category, and most of them are based on a few small studies. These variants can affect many aspects of how people respond to a keto diet, including weight loss, fat loss, appetite control, and seizure improvement. However, because they are symphony variants, they have only subtle effects on your response to keto, and therefore they can't tell you whether keto is right for you or not. They can just tell you where to focus your attention as one element of a multimodal, personalized keto strategy, along with other physiological and lifestyle factors. Let's move to the bad part now. Bad genetic variants for keto nutrigenetics are variants that have been identified in people consuming diets high in both fats and carbohydrates, also known as obesogenic high-fat diets. The standard American diet, or SAD, is an example of that. These variants include those in the PPAR alpha, PPAR gamma, FABP2, and many other genes. And most genetic reports use these variants as a red flag for anybody who wants to try a high-fat diet, especially if high in saturated fats, warning about potential negative effects on blood lipids, weight gain, diabetes, and more. The reason why this is bad advice is that the effects of obesogenic high-fat diets are diametrically opposite of those of keto. High fat in the company of high carbohydrates is a recipe for metabolic disease. It's bad for everybody, especially for those who carry some of these genetic variants. Yet in contrast, high fat as one element of a whole food, low carb diet can be a recipe for metabolic health. This is what we have shown in the Stanford Diet Fit study, in which those who followed a low carb, high fat diet based on whole foods successfully lost weight and improved their blood lipids, even those who carried two of those bad genetic variants for keto nutrigenetics, and especially those who ate the most cholesterol and saturated fat. This was a weight loss study, so the results may not be applicable to everybody. But the bottom line here is that the effects of dietary fats on your metabolic health highly depend on the quality and macronutrient composition of your diet. What are you eating with the high fat? Therefore, the genes that are a contraindication to an obesogenic high-fat diet may not necessarily be a contraindication to a keto diet. And providing such advice is potentially misleading. And this brings us to the ugly part. The genetic variants that are listed as a contraindication to keto, although new evidence shows they might be neutral or even represent an indication for keto. One of these variants is the infamous E4 variant in the ApoE gene. The apolipoprotein E, or ApoE, is a mysterious multifunctional protein with a multimillennial story of change and adaptation during human evolution. 1 in 4 people in this room may carry at least one copy of the E4 variant. This variant is the single strongest genetic risk factor for late-onset Alzheimer's disease. Yet, the risk highly depends on other genetic and lifestyle factors, including an obesogenic high-fat diet. This has led to the misconception that the E4 variant is an anti-fat and anti-keto variant, and is often presented as such in many genetic reports. This might be potentially misleading advice because new research from both case reports and randomized clinical trials shows that E4 carriers with mild cognitive impairment can improve their cognitive function on both a keto diet and a modified Mediterranean keto diet, rich in vegetables and fish and low in saturated fats. In contrast, E4 carriers who report consuming a higher amount of refined carbohydrates also report worse cognitive function. This is preliminary yet promising evidence that provides proof of concept for using a keto diet or a modified Mediterranean keto diet as one element of a multimodal cognitive health strategy, along with other lifestyle factors, such as sleep, exercise, stress management. About 200,000 years ago, which is fairly recently in terms of human evolution, all humans carried the E4 variant. An emerging hypothesis is that the E4 variant might have helped our ancestors thrive on a whole food, low-carb, high-fat diet by making their brain more efficient at using ketones as fuel. The flip side of that is that it might also have made our brain more sensitive to the chronic consequences of a high glucose environment, brain insulin resistance, impaired glucose metabolism in the brain, and consequent cognitive decline. So the messages that I hope you will bring home today are that our response to keto is an orchestra of genetic and lifestyle factors interacting with each other. There are only a few good variants for keto nutrigenetics that have been identified with people actually following a keto diet, but these variants are based on only a few small studies. And common genetic reports provide potentially misleading advice for keto nutrigenetics that is based on obesogenic high-fat diets, not on keto diets. So I hope that next time you will read your genetic report, you will feel less confused and more in control. Because in the DNA diet dance, diet is the lead, not the other way around. And if you want to learn more about how diet can lead DNA, check out my Stanford courses at draronica.com and my lectures on nutrigenomics, keto, fasting, and longevity on YouTube and Instagram at Dr. Lucia Aronica. Many speakers of this wonderful conference have been guest lecturers for my courses: Dominic D'Agostino, Shebani Setidalai, Andrew Kutnik, Asim Malhotra, Brett Sher, many others. I'm sure you will enjoy those lectures, and they will inspire you to let your diet lead your DNA. Thank you very much.